this marvelous series. Thank you, Tree, for reading with me, and thank you all for coming out. This is a lovely crowd to have on a weeknight for one of the world's oldest and perhaps first alternative art form, and to share my work with an audience of people for whom poetry is a real thing. When Harry Northup, Holly Prado, and Phoebe McAdams and I founded the Cahuenga Press in 1989, our goal was to make poetry real in the world. And of course, there are many ways to do that, and one of them is to do what you are all doing right now, which is to come out and listen to diverse voices and think of poetry as a kind of higher conversation that we have with the elements of ourselves that most need to be articulated. I'm going to begin with a prose poem from the book Undercurrent Blues. I was thinking about my parents earlier today, and how much of my own writing grows both from an attempt to reach into my mother's frustrated genius, past her alcoholism and frustration, into the core of art that she had within her. This is called Elegy for My Mother and Father. Jean Byers Cushing, who died in 1998, and my father, Frederick Cushing, who died in 2001. It's in 4 parts. 1. Waiting for the lights and the meals and the cries, this world lies fast asleep, face on its desk, and cannot answer its telephone call from its lonely parents. A woman plays piano from inside a cocoon, yet the music's clarity startles me like sharp pencils in my son's wet hand. Son, please remove those pencils from your hand. There, now your hand is empty. It was blood they telephoned about. Hello, blood. One little photo in the circle on our hands. One beige bowl of red and yellow blossoms near the glue, the family thread, but no pencil in my hand. 2. I have wasted hours imagining coming home from Vietnam, moving in with my mother and father, sitting up nights in my smoky bedroom with a Philco radio and a Barlow knife, watching my hands turn into red and yellow blossoms. I have flown twice to a haunted house where I ate only frozen food, polished 300 pieces of silverware, and returned with collections of bones, scarves, and first drafts. I have lifted a chair, and in it sat a woman, and in her lap were onions and parsnips, tulips and geraniums, potatoes and carrots, thumbtacks and pushpins, many strands of blood-red yarn, and a tiny boy in a nest of grass, making faces. I have said, "Mother, you win this game, congratulations." But I was thinking about my children when I said it, which was why I could say it at all. I have said to the worm, "Thou art my mother and my sister," and the worm replied, "Thou art my father and my lover. I shall await thee in the garden among the flowers we love." If a movie of this poem were playing on television, we'd see snow falling on a frozen hill, a rough log fence, and a picture of a woman inside a green and white box placed on the southernmost post of that fence. 3. A tarot deck, a bridge deck, a Ouija board, 3 Chinese coins, half a dozen pairs of dice. Am I strong enough for these medicines? Thirsty enough for these liquors? 35 years pass and still I wait by a 19th century chapel for a businessman to blink his Porsche headlights at me. Outside the sacristy I shiver and my hands burn with cold, but inside I grew sleepy and slow with the heat and stripped to my briefs in the smothered dark. A light bulb appears in a balloon above my head, but I feel it as a combination of stomach cramp, bad itch, and stiff neck, so I miss the bulb's terrible message, and nothing happens again. When leaving a room, the organ music tells me, leave it slowly but firmly with a straight back and a stride that says, many moons revolve around planets, but planets only revolve around the sun. 4. Surprised, my father paused, his right hand holding his gold-plated pen, and realized the folly of the written word. Elsewhere, poets limping past windows full of meat hurried to the next bus bench, catching their breath. Painters complained of animals bringing scissors into their beds. The moon began to wax. The painters were right. Animals were moving out of hiding. He griped about slow stoplights, dim streetlights, so many old hands in black gloves, so few cars, and all of them dark red, driven by women. Women wrote him lengthy letters on handmade paper and enclosed pieces of intimate apparel. But when he opened these scented envelopes, a loud light switch started clicking rapidly all by itself in the bathroom near where he slept. No, it was not a switch, only the rising east wind, blowing hard, scaring children and making men mean. I see its work in a whirlpool, cones of leaves and trash scooting across a driveway toward my father's black car. I felt him as a great warm hand on my right shoulder, crushing deposits of crystallized buildup. And now I feel him floating, cloud-like, wondering where to drop his load of blessing rain. He died a broken widower clutching a greasy pillow, skin made of paper, heart intent only on schools of rainbow trout moving through cold Wyoming streams, feeding near the surface, each fish a single muscle of the wild. There is or was a woman selling original calendars. I don't know if she's still. She's gone. I saw the calendars were all had original works of art, so I bought them. That's since painters and visual art has always been very important to me. From the earliest of these books, The Length of an Afternoon, this is a poem in 2 parts called Letter to a Painter. You can think of it as 2 letters or 2 painters or 2 separate poems or 2 parts of a longer poem. Letter to a Painter, 1. The one recurring image in your most recent show rises like a Chinese scrim behind a field of bones. The ripping of a paper doll precedes a singing woman with a camera. At ease in her smoldering clothing, speaking through cheesecloth, she says those bones represent your secret. The label under her photo of you reads Gleaner, which adds flavor and life to your portrait, gives it that shimmer people stay up late to see. Later, she filmed you climbing up a broken staircase stepping over the corpses of tapirs and opossums. But why did they keep moving? An attractive man leaned against your doorbell that night. Romantically involved with a female impersonator, he wanted to use your guest room for a night of forbidden sex. Where would you locate your work in his tradition? Who are your ultimate progenitors? Letter to a Painter, 2. Life these days is sweet and full, and I'm worn out at the end of them. Too full of food to speak, the summer lies before me on its blanket, unfolding scrap paper, looking for names. Your last letter really clued me in how you were using the wolf as a letter in a new alphabet. Other recurring images, accented words, or punctuated groups of them, order entered in muffled rushes of passion and frying hair. They failed, and their glamorous comet trails unite men still. You saw them? You were there? Power among men is proximity to glow, its frantic silent seconds, the heaps of ashes after. Memory of this proximity. Access to means of articulating this memory. Fear of failure, poor memory, unworthiness. Propitiation, burnt offerings, rituals, chants, spells, incantations, cantor, shaman, priest, the voice, what is written to be spoken, authority giving voice to word, interpretation, performance giving word to voice, asking voice for forgiveness with voice, silence, forcing voice, concentration of energy, editing silence out of voice, condensing voice, authority over voice, history, the record of memory, the purest dream work. Image birthing image as book begets book. The comet tail image may be the best of those left to us. The endless gesture of falling, so beautiful it always hurts. There in one image, all of man's plight, all our hunger, all our wildness. Not as if nobody saw it coming. At 13, one hears a buzz from the household piano during a lesson. No more lessons. We know what happens then. The amazing magazines, the flabbergasting vegetables, the translations of buzz, an alternative alphabet, horizons constructed out of black and coral jewels. Letter to a Painter. I have a friend in San Luis Obispo, a poet named Kevin Clark, and I believe that Kevin has appeared in this. But Kevin's published a couple of wonderful books, and he and I have talked a great deal about the whole idea of our origins as poets, and about something that may have happened to us at some point, and the conclusion, if that's the word that we've drawn, is that certainly in his case and in mine, when we were in our early adolescence, things happened to us that we were not able to understand or articulate. And at some level we needed to use language in order to put ourselves back together, because that was the only tool that we had. And we didn't know how to use language that way because our culture didn't show us any examples of using language that way until we opened books of poems. And then, aha, here's someone doing it. Here's Yeats doing it. Here's Dylan Thomas doing it. Here's Allen Ginsberg doing it. Here's Frank O'Hara doing it. Here's Emily Dickinson doing it. Here's Robert Hayden doing it. The gender and race somehow don't matter anymore. This is this purely human thing. And And so I think we, to carry our influences openly is at the same time to acknowledge our losses, because they're very deeply related. So this poem came out of that conversation that I had with Kevin Clark, and I dedicated it to him, and it's called "The Man with the Corpse on His Shoulders." I'm going to take some water before I give it to you. The Man with the Corpse on His Shoulders, for Kevin Clark. I know a man who carries a corpse on his shoulders. Yesterday at sunset, I thought I saw a lump of what had been a foot, or a smear of what maybe was a face, just to the side of my friend's pant leg, down by the unshined toes of his brown saddle shoes. It was the dead, gray, mortal thing, beautiful and real in some way no one can explain, the corpse he carries and the way he carries it. So much so that when I hear a bossa nova, I think of him. And when I try to write a poem, sure and frank and flashing with sex and wisdom and all the things I want to include in it, like my friend and the corpse he carries, I think of him again. Today he told me, "Stay away from me, I'm sick." I told him his shoes were in a poem I was writing, but that's not true. The shoes escaped me while he hoisted his corpse. Back home, he props it in its chair for the night so it may watch him dreaming. I carry a corpse too. Here it is in my black and tan book bag next to my green Plato. Look at it. His face, uncorrupted, has lost what rage it ever had. His white hair, grown past his shoulders, feels so delicate. Strands show up on tabletops, sweaters, bowls of soup. His veiny hands, covered in loose, translucent skin, clasp one another as though he were meeting himself and felt on fire with the need to touch. Some trouble with his belt. It keeps unbuckling, catching my book bag, scraping my right ear as I force his body into it. The bag weight hurts my shoulder, pulls me to the right as I try walking a straight line. I love the work I make when carrying him, love the hurt of his buckle on my ear, the chafing of my shoulder, the ache in my arm, my full bladder, sleep amoebas swimming in front of all I see. Through this nest of floating, shapeless things, I see my friend walking to his car, stopping to adjust his corpse's feet so they don't kick him every step. I see him the way I sometimes see halos a few inches above the heads of strangers, or statues making tiny movements with their eyes. I think I'll ask him if I may sleep tonight in his backyard. The radio predicted comets, shooting stars, and it's dark enough out there for them to seem real. That's called "The Man with the Corpse on His Shoulders" from the book with the green cover, Pinocchio's Revolution.